Hi, everyone. I am excited to have my friend Jordache here with us today. And I met Jordache a couple years ago at Social Media Day Lima, not Lima, Lima, like the bean. And anyone who has heard me talk about social media at least a couple years ago, I was quoting Jordache all the time because he talked about how you had to season the pan. Now, we don't need to do that so much anymore, but Jordache, I was quoting you daily and crediting you with that. But that to me made so much sense when we started getting into AI and how, in order for AI to work for a company, it really needed to sound like you. And in order to do that, you needed to season the pan. So there's a lot more about Jordache. He's an AI first culture architect. He helps organizations thrive through AI in the AI driven world. He's the founder of Never Tech Behind, which he'll talk about a little bit. And he developed the ADAPT system, the DICE method, and the AHA framework, which again, we'll share what all that means. He's kind of one of my go-to people along with Justin for AI. I have followed him for a long time. If you've seen him, it's probably because he's an international keynote speaker. He's one of the originating thought leaders around AI. And what I love about Jordache is, just like the season the pan, he breaks it down and makes it easy. Also, your mom did name you after Jordache jeans. Did I remember that correctly?
She did. I'm an 80s baby. My mother loved the jeans, so that's what happened.
Well, no pressure, Jordache, but Vivica brought you in here, and normally we don't have anybody on the show who's not at least had one prostate exam. So you're a little on the young side.
Young.
It's on the horizon. We'll put it like that. We're getting close to there.
So many good times to come. Well, welcome aboard.
Well, no, I appreciate y'all. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, let me just go ahead and get started. So is seasoning the pan still relevant?
Yes and no. Just like everything. Like, I'm a lawyer, right? I'm not going to give you a direct answer. No. And to give people, the listeners some context behind that, when we were talking about that early on, it was all about and it's still applicable to a lot today, is one of the things I always say is AI is very, very smart. AI is very, very good at world knowledge. But when it comes to an individual, when it comes to you, when it comes to your business, when it comes to your situation, when it comes to your clients you serve, it's dumb, right? And it's dumb. And so when we talk about seasoning the pan, I always use the analogy back then was like, when you had a cast iron skillet, right? When you made that first meal in that cast iron skillet, it wasn't that good. But you cooked with it enough, you seasoned it enough, it starts adding flavor. Every time you cook with it more, it adds more flavor. So that's kind of the analogy I used to speak with. But still to this day, though, context is king when it comes to AI. When I mean by context, data, information, etc. The more I can share with it to kind of narrow down the scope of what AI needs to go do to retrieve the information to give back to me, the better the results are going to be. When I can give it background information on who I am or who I serve or what data points around that, it's going to give me better information back. So we don't need to do it nearly as much, but if you actually I would be scared for you, but if you got a glimpse in my Google Drive and how I'm storing data and the information I'm storing and I'm building into my workflows and my automations, it's actually a lot more than what I was even doing back then, because you start seeing the more you do it, the more powerful you can get with it. So that's why it's a yes and no answer. Today's models are very, very good at taking some context or your past chats, etc., or even the prompt, right? I remember back then it was prompt engineering is going to be the new skill that you need to learn and have all this stuff. Right. And what's happening now, whenever I put something in the chat, it's doing its own prompt engineering before it actually sends it to the server anyways, right? So that's why we don't have to be so robust in the conversational prompts. Now, when we're talking system prompts, it's a different story, but yeah, so it's not nearly as important, but you should still be doing it because they actually give you better results today when it comes to seasoning.
I like that analogy, that seasoning the pan analogy, because what you said is absolutely true. If you just cook with a new cast iron pan, the meal's going to stick and it's going to be kind of crappy. Yep. But you also don't necessarily have to season the pan by cooking, by actually creating content. You can season the pan by putting down a coat of oil, putting it in a super hot oven, bringing it to the smoke point, doing that 3 or 4 times till the point that the pan is seasoned and ready to cook. And AI is the exact same. Yep. If you take the time to build personas or to build the different frameworks, making sure that you're giving the AI the background information on who you are and what your goals are and what its job is. If you take the time to do that, then your first meals are going to be far better.
You're 100% right. And this is, I always talk about the system before the system. And what do I mean by that is people want to just jump into AI. And it's like, if you take a breath and sit back and say, okay, I know what I want to accomplish with this technology or this tool. What information does it need? If I was hiring somebody brand new, I got to give that new hire information and context to be able to go do its job. It's the same thing with AI. So if you spend the time up front and be meticulous with how do I plan it out? What information do I need, etc. It's gonna save you a ton of time on the back end when you're actually producing those results. And like you said, Steve, you're gonna get better results. It's gonna taste better coming out the gate versus going back and forth. And then, I always joked around. It was like early on when I was giving talks, I always get at least one copywriter saying, it takes me longer to write an AI than would without me just writing. I'm like, of course, right. You were built on that, right? But I guarantee you, as somebody who has 10 years of experience copywriting, you're actually have an advantage because you know what's good and what's not good, and you know what actually requires to get inputted to produce good copy. So it's one of those things. You spend some time up front, and you're going to be rewarded on the back end.
Well, you were saying, Jordache, that you spent over a decade now, kind of from the time that you started to really think about and start trying to implement AI, which gives you about an 8-year head start or even longer on the rest of us. So I'd be really interested in your own personal kind of the way that you implement it yourself, as opposed to how you coach your clients. Yeah. Because I found that myself. I've kind of gone through, we're going to use the word seasons again, but I've gone through seasons of AI from my very first, putting into ChatGPT, give me an outline for a talk. And like, holy shit. Right. That's right. Darn good. That black magic. So I went from this just, voyage of discovery of this is what it does to trying to understand how I could implement it effectively in my work without to a level that I felt morally comfortable, that I could put this work out that was proper. We had all those conversations, but that was starting to learn about personas, learning about workspaces, learning about building the infrastructure. And I've gotten to the point where I've got those things in place, and I am maybe just recently in a place where AI to me is most useful as a kind of a coach, where I prepare my content and then I put it into AI and I say, what am I missing? Well, how can I look at this differently? It's been really and I imagine though I'm going through different kind of phases in my AI development. And so you probably you're probably 4 or 5 phases ahead of where Viv and I are right now.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you right now, you're like, just listening to you talk, I'm like, we're going to be best friends, Steve. Well, we already know we're just getting to know, but I like how you think. So you're 100% right. And I think this is, to take a couple steps back before we, dive into that specifically. I think this is something that, people need to truly understand is you are building a new skill set. And, the longer that we've been in our professional lives, you start realizing like you really don't start new skill sets from scratch very often, right? Because it's always building on something else, right? Like there's always like, if I was I started my career in corporate finance and investments, right? If I was going down that path, I would still be building off of what I learned in my first job, and I would, building on understanding how to read balance sheets and income statement, all that stuff, right? But then, when this technology came out, people are like, "Holy crap!" Like, I'm starting from scratch. And our first intuition was to think of this just like a tool, like another technology tool versus truly a mindset shift, a workflow shift, cultural shift. Like there's a lot happening in the mind that we had to get our minds wrapped around it. I remember even when I opened up ChatGPT with that interface, it's like you're staring at that blank screen. You're like, so what do I put in it? Like, what do I test out? Like, I know it can do a lot of stuff. And then it's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I always joke around, it's black magic, right? So to give you some context though, I think, a typical path that a lot of people go on is first they kind of started that, whoa, I never knew this was amazing. It can do all this other stuff. And then it's kind of like, if you're familiar with Gartner, right? They always have this hype cycle, right? For like technologies. But you kind of experience it on an individual level. You're like, oh my gosh, this is brand new. It's amazing. It's going to be able to do all this stuff. Then it's like, you use enough. You're like, this isn't really that good. I'm getting a whole bunch of crap out of it. This isn't what it doesn't sound like me. It doesn't do this. I'm like, this technology doesn't work for me. And some people will jump off the ship at that point in time. Like, AI is not for me. It doesn't work for my business. I'm special, yada, 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 right?
Especially when they have learned enough to recognize bad AI when
exactly.
they see it.
Exactly.
They see it coming from competitors or vendors, and they go, that is and it diminishes the respect for whoever it is producing it.
And if you scan any of these social platforms, you can pick out AI. If you've been around the game, you can pick out AI content very, very quickly, right? That's like, I can tell you that was generated by ChatGPT without any human interaction, right? So you kind of go through that, and then eventually you kind of come to this, plateau of like, all right, now let me actually figure out how to get this to work in my business for myself, et cetera. And Steve, I think you're past that, but this is the path you're going on. And so when you're getting to that point, then you start realizing two things. Number one, if you haven't got to this point yet, it's number one is you don't need the latest and greatest tool. You don't need the latest and greatest model to get a whole bunch of value. And people get caught up in chasing the shiny new toy, shiny new thing. And it's like, you can get a lot of value with the amount of AI right now from almost any of these models that have been released in the last year. So you don't feel,
what's the best LLM? What's the best LLM?
Exactly.
I'm going to tell you right now, that is the most common question I get all the time. What tools do you use? And I always tell people, you're asking the wrong question. The question you got to be asking yourself is, what problems do I want to solve? Let me then go figure out what is the best solution to solve that problem. Because if not, you're going to have a whole bunch of subscriptions. You're going to have a whole bunch of tools, and you're going to be searching for problems to solve with the tools versus actually solving problems with it, right? So you always start, and this is where you start combining like your experience with business. It's like in my business, I'm trying to solve problems for my customers, my clients, and then I'm going to give them a solution to that. I don't come out with solutions and go try to find a problem to go solve. I understand problems and I build solutions off that, right? Same thing with AI. Let me find actual problems in my business or in my personal life and then go solve those, right? And that's when you start moving into the, okay, I can actually start unlocking value with AI when I'm actually solving real world problems. And you start small. You start like, hey, I wonder if AI can do this. I wonder if AI can do this. And this is like, you're training your brain to start identifying opportunities where AI can actually add value, speed it up, make it faster, make it more efficient, etc., right? Then once you kind of get through that, then you're like, okay, I can get it to help me write some emails. I can get it to help me come up with some content ideas. I can get it to help me outline content, etc. Whatever you're using it for in business or in personal. We can talk about the difference between those here in a second. But then you get to that point of like, how do I actually, like you were saying, Steve, how can I actually get it to, the way I explain this is, how do you start getting it to have you think outside the box? And let me explain what I mean by that for a second. Because if you take a second to step back and zoom out, the human mind, right? Our experience, our knowledge, the only thing that's based on like somebody told me this many, many years ago, your brain is blind. It uses senses and gets information from all your senses and electrical currents to actually build your knowledge and your experience. So what does that mean? Everything in my brain, everything that I know about is based off my experiences, my knowledge, the environments I've been in, the knowledge I've been exposed to, the things I've been able to do, the failures, the successes, all that stuff shapes how I see the world. Reality is a perception, right? And so when I say that, when we're sitting here trying to write an email or create a piece of content or whatever it is, without AI, we are constrained to what is in our mind. Now, where AI can help, and Steve, this is what you're going along the lines of, is saying, okay, here's how I would typically do it as a human. Help me think outside of, how am I not looking at this differently? What am I missing? What are the things that can make it better that I may not be exposed to? How can I explain this differently? How can I communicate this more effectively? That's where you can get a lot of value. I always call it as a thought partner, right? Whether it's a coach, whether it's a thought partner, whether it's whatever it is, when you're using it alongside of what you're currently doing and you're saying, if this is who I'm talking to, this is the message I want to get across. AI, you know this person's personality. What words intentionally can I use that would resonate with them? I go back to 7th grade speech. my speech teacher was like, if I'm the sender, it's my responsibility for the receiver to get my message, right? Now we have a tool to help us understand who the receiver is, to help us translate our message. And that's just a simple example, but it's the same thought process now of whether it's help me strategize. I'm coming up with a strategy for my business growth for the fourth quarter, or whether I'm looking to grow or hire new people in this new industry, or I'm looking to attack this new market. Here's what I'm thinking about. What are your thoughts? What are the risks? What are the downsides? What are things I'm not thinking about to expose my mind to get me to think outside the box? That's a huge value AI can unlock right now is your thought partner. Now,
I finally have an invisible friend that talks back to me properly.
Right. I was literally on a call today, and I'm like, I treat Claude, or I use Claude a lot. I treat it like it's my therapist. Now, I'm just talking to it, right? Like,
there are people doing that,
right? And that's a whole nother conversation between therapy and spouses, and that's a whole nother side of this technology that we can go down if you want. But my point about this though is, like, I'll tell you right now, like, my mind's always moving fast. Like, I'm always thinking of things. There's always something going. It's hard for me to calm my mind down.
We figured that out.
That's why I meditate. I tried to.
We're on that bandwagon with you now. We understand.
You got that, right? But one thing that AI does excellent is make things concise and identifies patterns. And so when I go on my morning walks, I have my headphones in, I'm just talking into a voice memo, right? I have a little automation built out for my iPhone to say, as soon as I'm done with my voice memo, I press 2 buttons, it sends it to an automation, runs it through my AI system prompts, puts it in a Google Doc, stores it in my Notion database. So by the time I'm taking a shower and coming to my desk, my brainstorm, my thoughts are organized for the day. I'm ready to take action, right?
That's so cool. That's like an extension of the meeting notes of things like Fireflies, where
100%. Otter, Fireflies, whatever. But now it's like, because you think about this, like, I always joke around, because like I said, I speak a lot at conferences, and I go to conferences as well. I always joke, but it's like, how many of y'all, I usually say this on stage, how many of y'all are going to take your phone up there, take a picture of slides, and that picture is never going to leave your photo roll by the time you leave this conference? Happens all the time. Right? Yeah. Same concept when I used to use voice memos. I'm just brain dumping. I'm just brainstorming. I'm just getting things outside of my head so I can actually process what I need to do. But I would have pages of these voice memos. And I'm like, what am I doing with this stuff? Why don't I leverage AI to help me organize that? Think that when I'm coming up with keynote talks, when I'm coming up with what messages do I want to, I go on walks and I just talk to Claude and I just brainstorm in a voice memo when it eventually gets sent to Claude. And so that's what helps me organize my thoughts. It helps me get my thoughts organized. It helps me brainstorm, put my brainstorm chaos into order, all that good stuff. And so that's like an extension of a thought partner. This is my assistant that helps me get my mind right and get clarity on what do I want to attack. It makes me more productive. It gets me clarity on exactly what I want, what I don't want. And this is just on the business side. I also do it on like my goals and my vision and all this other stuff. I'm always talking to AI about something and helping it organize my thoughts. Now, Steve, one of the things I will tell you, one of the next steps up after you kind of start getting wrapped around this is now you have these workflows, you have it integrated in what you're doing, you have it as your thought partner, etc. Now you start thinking about, okay, how do I make this more efficient? So I don't always have to open up a chat, or I don't always have to open up a Claude project or a custom GPT and go back and forth with the chat, etc. like that. Then you start moving in these AI automations, which are basically similar to Zapier, similar to these business automations we've had for many years. Now we can inject AI into those processes, similar to what I kind of just walked you through in that workflow I was talking about. But now I can get it to actually do things repetitively when I want that, right? Now that's where I've been at for like the last year or so, building out workflows and even my own business, right? And being able to inject AI into those workflows. But you can't start there. Even when I'm starting and like when I have an idea of like, this is going to be a good AI powered workflow, you know where I start? I start in the chat. Then I move it to a project. Then eventually that project gets moved to an automation because I have to flesh out the workflow. I have to find the edge cases, things like that. Then it gets there. But the funny thing is, the same context, the same foundational information I'm putting in that chat or in that project are the same pieces I need to build out the AI automation. It's the same thing I need to go build out AI agents if I want to move it up to that level in the thing. Right. That's what I call it. I call it the AI extension ladder. You start with the chat, you go to the AI projects, you go to the AI automations, you go to the AI agent level. still need the underlying information. It's a lot easier to build that way than this. So then you're just always looking for opportunities to say, hey, here's the workflow I'm doing. How do I hate writing SOPs. How do I basically make it simple where I can just talk it out and it creates SOPs in the frameworks and the format that I want in my business that will train it with that? How do I start thinking about, like I said, keynotes or whatever you do in your business? This is what you can do. Quarterly planning, annual planning, goal setting, whatever it is, use it as a thought partner. And then you can start building out workflows so you can make it repetitive at that point in time.
Well, what I like is your Jordache first, right? It is
100%.
coming from your stream of consciousness.
Yes.
And I know it's you do AI first consulting, but it's coming from your stream of consciousness. And I think that's so important because a lot of people will be like, I need some topics for blog posts. And then you get a lot of AI first content. Or And so in order for it to remain human and relatable and not so clearly AI.
Yes. And Viv, that's a very, very good point. I'm glad you brought this up because one of the things I'm very intentional with any workflow, anytime I'm using AI, humans are always the first. It always begins with the human, right? Whether it's my thoughts, my words, whatever it is, that's going to help the process. But then also, even in these AI automations, I call them, there's human checkpoints. So there's points in the workflow where the human comes in and checks or edits or tweaks or whatever it is. One of the things I always tell people is my goal with AI is to give me an 80% draft. All I want is an 80% draft because the human will come in and give me that last 20%. That's what will make sure that you will actually get quality stuff coming out of the gate. We're not at the stage yet where I can push a button and it's just perfect coming out the gate. Not saying we won't get there, but that's not where we're at. And the reason behind that is because there's a lot of things that the human is still amazing at and better at, and understanding that we use AI as an assistant. AI doesn't drive us, we drive AI in that sense, right? And that's super important for people to realize, because if not, like, you go on YouTube, you go search AI automations, you're going to see a whole bunch of videos. How I can post a 30 social platforms and consistently, and it runs all the time, every day. It's literally the same pattern I saw back in the early 2000s and 10s when we used to get social media posting or scheduling was coming out. And remember how many times that everybody had those inspirational Instagram posts, and we could make a post every single day, and it could happen. It's the same pattern. People just want to take shortcuts and say, look at me, and I can just push a button. It can just happen automatically. It's like the goal is not to remove the human in the workflow right now. It's how do I speed up the thought process and the mindset and what we're our knowledge and our experience. How do we speed that up? We speed that up from not starting from a blank page. We start with an 80% draft, started with our own words, our own thoughts, and then we come in that last 20% to clean it up.
You've really touched on, I think, one of the big challenges that those who believe, or that those who recognize how AI can be implemented in their business versus the rest. Yeah. And I think you probably experience this a lot when you're coaching larger clients.
Yes.
Is that you're going to be selling to people or explaining AI to people who don't use it because they don't understand the value.
Yes.
Therefore, how can they possibly envision the value to their organization? So it's got to come from a personal relationship first, doesn't it? You've got to recognize the little things that it does for you and what your relationship with AI. I don't know if that's the right term for it. But you've established that. You've established the pecking order and where AI is your collaborator and how it works with you, and in what its job is and what your job is.
You're 100% right.
A CEO of a company is busy doing, with vision and finance and all of these other things. They don't typically have an opportunity to sit there and go, I'm going to put the AI, because they've got assistants who have filled in the AI roles, or they've got underlings who have filled in what us small entrepreneurs use AI to create. So how do you express the value of AI to a company who needs it, but the leadership looks at it with a great deal of mistrust and skepticism?
That's a great question. It happens more often than it should. I'll put it like that. So there's a couple things that that are always, I'll call them like, they're always first, things that we're always doing before we even start, going down a path of looking how to scale AI in an organization, right? So number one of the things you touched on from a leadership standpoint, I'm always meeting with the senior leaders, the C-suite team first. And this is because at the end of the day, and there's so many studies that will back this up, your employees, your team members will not adopt it unless they see you using it. And so we have to get you using it in some form or fashion. Now, one of the things that we do, and this, whether it's the C-suite, whether it's a person working on the social media campaign in the marketing department on the third floor, is how do we get you that first win as quickly as possible? And it doesn't have to be anything customer facing. It's just like to show you the power of what it can do in your individual situation. And so we spend time understanding, what do you do every day? What's your activities? What are you doing each week? What are you doing each month? And we try to find these low hanging fruit opportunities. We're saying, hey, just for this week, here's some things I want you to test out and just report back. Let me know how it goes. Because here's what will happen. If it's a CEO and I'm saying, okay, hey, you're meeting with investors, you're meeting with other partners or whomever it is, wouldn't it be nice to be able to understand how to actually communicate and actually make sure that that person understands what you're trying to say, your messaging right off the back, so you can come back with a dossier on the person before you even meet them and do this? Let me show you some strategies on how you can actually do the research and actually have your talking points translated that will actually make sense to that person's personality. And they're like, what? And I'm like, just try this out, do this, right? Because here's what will happen. When you get that first win, that dopamine hits. And now you're like, wonder what else it can do. So my goal is, how quickly can I get you from just test something out to start asking the questions, well, what else can it do? And so we're spending time just trying to figure out, how do we cross that first bridge? Because I got to get you some small micro wins first, and just in your individual personalized, where no one else is going to see it. No customer is going to see this. It's all internal. So there's no risk. And let's just try this out. So that's what we spend a lot. And then from there, it's like, okay, that actually worked. Let me try this next.
Can you remember back to what your first dopamine hit was? What was your first big win with AI where you went, oh shit, this is...
Yes, I would say this was, I'm trying to think of the year. It had to be 2018-ish time frame, I would say. 2018, 2019. There was a couple tools that were building on top of some GPTs at the time. And it was one of those things where if you have any background in marketing or even just running a business, you understand there's principles that always have to be applied. I'm a big principle person, right? It can apply to any technology wave we're in. And one of the things I hated doing that was always super important that we had to do was customer avatars, and doing the research on customer avatars and understanding, like, what are the reviews and what are their thoughts? Well, how do we get inside the customer's head and all this other stuff? Painstaking process. They use scouring forums, scouring reviews, looking at feedback, looking at testimonials, trying to connect the dots and do this. And I remember at one point in time, we were like, I wonder if we just take a little bit of this data over here and a little bit of this, and let's just put it together and see what AI can come back with. And we put it in, and we're like, holy beep, 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 beep. Like, we just did.
You can say the words.
Yeah.
I was like, holy mother. Anyways. And it was one of those times, because it was like, was it perfect? No, but it got us 50, 60% of the stuff that would have took us probably days to take at that point in time, right? And all that it was doing was connecting dots and connecting patterns and looking at patterns. And so once I saw that, I was like, holy this is good. This just saved me 4 hours or 4 days of work of painstaking research and trying to rack my brain around that.
And it gave you something to edit rather than something to create.
It's a lot easier to edit than it is to create. That's all. I say that at least 4 times a week when I'm having conversations with people.
Yes.
And
Vivica, what was your first one? What was your first aha?
Oh gosh, I think it was after attending Jordache's talk, but I really LinkedIn. I mean, it was. I tell people, we used to have 6 to 8 LinkedIn profile writers, in our stable. It would take hours and hours and hours of interviewing the client, and up to 3 months to get a workbook that they would then have to customize. I mean, doing LinkedIn profiles was time consuming and very expensive for our clients and for us. And the first time I just plugged in a prompt after uploading, like I hadn't uploaded my ICPs or anything like that. So once I uploaded my ICPs, I did a very basic prompt and then tweaked it later with what I knew as a LinkedIn expert. And the results were so much better than anything we had come up in the previous years. And I was just like, oh my God, thank goodness I've left Vengresso because I would be screwed right now.
Because their value proposition has been
the value prop had changed completely. Like, thank goodness I'm not a LinkedIn expert anymore. And thank goodness we shifted over to software.
It's interesting. It's interesting that the common
thing, no, I'm not done yet.
Okay, go ahead.
The other thing, which, and I will tell you with my clients, when I run my clients through this, dream interpretation. That is the thing that makes them go, oh my God, more than the LinkedIn profiles, more than the prompts for blog posts, dream interpretation.
Thank God I can edit this out.
And Steve, one. Oh, go ahead. I was gonna share one more.
Well,
thing,
I was just gonna say the common until we talked about the dream stuff. The common denominator between the two was both of you found the initial value in overcoming a drudgery.
Yes.
Doing something which
100%.
was in my stories exactly the same.
Yep.
I hate writing YouTube descriptions for videos that I was creating. Because I know that people don't read it, machines read it. I didn't care about it. It just had to be accurate. And it was torture to do it. And I did terrible jobs. The first time that I imported a transcript, said do a YouTube description, and it did the time code and everything, and it came out. It was like angels sang. The sky turned a different color of blue. I was instantly converted. Because it saved me 2 hours.
Yes. And one thing, and this kind of ties back to what you asked a little bit ago, Steve, around kind of like the levels, the different seasons that you go through as you kind of go down your own AI journey. Obviously a lot of things we were talking about were within the business itself, right? And one of the things I say a lot, I feel like in the last few months, and people are starting to finally resonate with it. I've been saying it for a little while longer, but it's like it fundamentally shifts how we learn as well. And what do I mean by that is because if you signed up for a digital course, or if you signed up for an online course, basically, I'll use Viv as an example. If I signed up for her, let's say her LinkedIn mastery course, made up, whatever. I always call BC, before ChatGPT, what would happen was I would sign up for Viv's course. I would watch the modules, watch the videos, consume the information on her expertise that she was sharing with me. And then I always had to cross this bridge of, okay, I understand Viv's things, but how does it apply to my own personal situation? I had to merge those bridges. I had to merge those data points. And that's where a lot of people fell off. That's why online course completion percentages have been horrendous and they're always declining, is because you get to a point you're like, I can't think anymore. I don't know. I understand what she's saying, but it doesn't work for me. I don't know how it applies to my personal situation. And now if you think about this, now it's similar to what I was saying before. You give me Viv's framework, you give me Viv's knowledge, I give it what my situation is, and it can bridge that gap very quick. And it's a personalized coach in a sense for any online course, things like this, right? Now I say that because now what else it can do, and I'll tell you a story here in a second. So another aha moment that happened for me that kind of branched this out was, I'm not a developer, right? I knew how to build websites, HTML, CSS, but I'm not a Python person. I didn't know how to write JavaScript. I didn't know how to do all this stuff. And, sometimes late at night, I come on my second shift and I go down the degen path of, playing in the crypto space. I've been in there for about a little over a decade now. And there was one problem I had. I was like, I needed to figure out, how did I get notified when something happened on a smart contract on the blockchain? I wanted to be notified. I was like, I wonder if AI can help me this. So I had AI walk me through step by step. This was a few years ago, to build a WhatsApp bot using Python. And I remember when it took me about 4 or 5 hours to do this, but I remember when it worked, I was like, I called my wife and I was like, baby, look, I didn't even code. I'm not a coder, but this works every single time. And what that happened was, I'm talking like Steve, I'm talking the first question. I have to go back and chat. It has to be in ChatGPT. The first question I asked itself was like, once I kind of describe what I want to build, I was like, it's like, hey, we're going to build this in Python, do this. I was like, okay, great. I have a MacBook Pro what's the first tool I need to download to even open up a Python file? What is Python? And it gave me the download. It's like, okay, download this, install this, do this. And I went back and forth, edits, errors, all this stuff, but I got it to work. And I was like, holy crap. Now I was able to build something that I had no background on, no experience on. It probably took me 5 years to be able to get to a level to go build this before ChatGPT. Now I could actually go create that. So now I'm empowered. Another example. So I have, in my house, we have Fire TVs connected to all of our TVs, right? It's all internet TV, right? And before ChatGPT, I was going on forums. I had a little a little NAS, a little server upstairs. I could, I had a little system where I could search on my phone. It could download the show. It could do all this other stuff. And it could play through Plex on my Fire TV. I got it working by going through, days of going through forums and watch. Here's a problem. I'm searching for somebody with a solution to this problem, etc. Things updated. It sat idle for like a year and a half. I remember one day I was like, I need a new project to work on. And I was like, I want to get this working. I wonder if AI can help me with this. Within the afternoon, I'm learning Docker. I understand containers. I understand all this other stuff. And it's been working for the last about year and a half, 2 years now flawlessly. And AI helped me do that in a weekend because now I didn't have to wait for somebody else's solution to post on a forum to get the problem I'm trying to solve. And then when they gave me a solution, I'm like, I don't know what Docker is. I don't know what a container is. I don't know this. Now before chat, I'm like, where do I go? I have to go find somebody else to explain that concept to me. Now I have this power of knowledge to learn something. And if I want to spend the time to do it, to actually go create things in my world, I'm building software tools right now. I'm not a developer. Usually it would cost me 50, 100 grand to go hire a developer to go execute an MVP version of this, to be able to do this. Now I can spend the afternoon or a week or so to go build the front end, back end, UI, UX, all that stuff. And I've been able to power. And one of the things I will say to wrap this up is, it's what you start realizing is this is like, so Steve, going back to what you're saying, one of my frames of reference, my thought process, my mental model now is I'm always looking for projects to figure out how can AI assist me, whether it's with my business or whether it's a side project. And the reason being is, even going back to that WhatsApp bot example, there were skills that I learned that I was able to reference later down the line when something else came up. Even with when I was doing the TVs with the Docker, now I'm like, I understand conceptually. I understand enough about how Docker works, how containers work, how the different variables I need to set and all this other stuff. That has actually helped me with this software thing. So like I always tell people, you have to be curious. You have to experiment. You have to find problems or projects to work on just to see if you can solve it, because you're building skills that you can take with you. And so that is one of the biggest skill sets that people can do right now, is just get comfortable with trying to find experiments and projects to work on. And when you do that, you can start building up your skill sets. And the way I relate this, I used to have random businesses. At one point I had a photography business like 16 years ago. And I had a good eye. So I was taking good pictures, but then I was like, I better learn how to use Photoshop. I need to know how to edit these pictures. And then we had Lightroom and Photoshop at the time. And I remember the first time I opened up Photoshop, I'm like, there's about 50 buttons in here. Like, how the heck am I going to learn how to use Photoshop? And I remember I literally bought Photoshop for Dummies book back in the day. And I'm reading this, trying to understand what's this? Here's a brush, here's a lasso, all this other stuff. But then I realized, I was like, this is not a tool I can learn in a linear model. There's not a module 1, modular 2, modular 3.
Photo.
I just said, hey, what's one thing I'm trying to do with this photo? Turn it to black and white. Let me go learn how to do that. Great. What's another thing I want to turn this black and white with just one color pop. Let me go learn how to do that. I did that for a few months. Next thing you know, I actually knew how to navigate around this tool. And I didn't need to know everything about it. I just needed to know enough to solve the problem right in front of me. It's like just-in-time learning, right? The Japanese did just-in-time manufacturing. It's just-in-time learning. So if you treat AI the same way.
Here's what people miss. You needed to pay enough attention to know what the tool was capable of so that you could ask it to learn. That's where people fall short, is they don't know what the tools are capable of.
100%. 100%. And you don't need to I don't need to understand how these models were trained. I don't need to be a data scientist. I don't need to know all that stuff. But the version that I'm using, I need to know, what is it good at? How does it process information? What is it capable of? And I'm always trying to expand my my capability, my possibility muscle is what I call it, right? And when I'm giving talks, I tell people all the time, I'm like, my job today, there's gonna be things that you're gonna be like, I'm so overwhelmed, George, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I'm just gonna tell you, great, you were in the right seat at the right time, because all I'm doing is planting the seed. All I'm doing is trying to expand what's possible, because at some point down the line, you're gonna look back and you're like 6 months down the line, you're gonna be like, dang, that dude Jordache actually knew what he was talking about. I would just have enough experience to actually make sense, but now I can tie those 2 points together. Viv, it was very similar with our experience, right? It was like, I just expanded your mind of what's possible within how to use it, how to think about it a little bit differently. And then you went off with the races once you kind of grasped that concept and ran with it.
You know, what I think is really important here, I was reading how, interestingly enough, AI is making us stupider because we are getting lazy about it, right? Yeah. Write this, do this, give me the answers, and we're not discerning. So I think the big difference between AI making us stupider and AI making us smarter is just what you just said. It's the curiosity piece. It's the ABL, always be learning.
And it goes back to what Steve and I were talking about, is use it as a thought partner to actually make you smarter, make you think about things different, because now I'm a better writer because AI has given me some tips along the way of how to write better headlines, how to write better hooks, how to do this, right?
This is the commitment. This is the two. Maybe there's more than two types of people, but the types of people that we experience in our community, there's people who are looking for a shortcut, for AI to be a shortcut, and people looking for an agent that's going to make things better. Yeah. And if you're looking for AI to help you do better work, that's an entirely different philosophy than looking for a shortcut. Now, but within that, I mean, it's a little more complex because it is a shortcut. Well, for me, using it to write YouTube descriptions. It's a shortcut, but I don't know why that seems that it's okay for me to say it that way, but it's not okay for others. But nevertheless, I take that time and I use it to do better work in other areas. I guess maybe that's it.
Well, Steve, I'll tell you why. It's because it's somebody with the domain knowledge that has the understanding of what is good and what is bad in that domain knowledge. And you're using to speed that up, right? If I was writing, if I'm trying to write YouTube headlines, that's not a background that I experience that I have, right? Whatever comes out of AI is going to sound great to me. You're going to be able to say, not so much. That's missing this. Oh, it's missing this. We need to have the word, the length is wrong, or the SEO word needs to be the first word, or whatever it may be. You can just use it to speed it up, up that creation process. But me, without any background knowledge, I'm going to take AI for its word. It's just because it sounds better, right? That's the difference, because you have the knowledge to actually, the depth of knowledge to actually understand what's good or bad.
And that's where I want to say this audience, like a lot of people think AI, that's clearly only for young tech bros, right? But those of us who have been on this earth longer and we've got a lot of experience, especially in specific industry and industry experience, like just what you said, we know what's crap and what's right and what's 100%. Good. And that's going to be a differentiator. So like, don't give up if you're 50, 60, 70 and you're going, oh my God, what is he talking about even?
Right.
Like, this is a support for you. And what's going to make you better at it is the fact that you can discern what's valuable and what's crap.
It is. And that's the, like, from an individual, we can take this from an individual approach or from a business approach, right? At the end of the day, these models are going to continue to get smarter and smarter, right? The version of AI that we're using today is the dumbest version of AI that we're ever going to use. And that's just a fact, right? Yeah. And what's going to happen is we have to figure out, like, what's our moat? Like, and when I say moat, like, what's going to basically ensure that we have an advantage, or we have a competitive advantage, or we're going to be able to actually add value to that. What does that come down to? It comes down to our knowledge and our experience. And it comes down to how we think about things. In the business, it comes down to what data does this business have that nobody else can touch. It's that proprietary data that we're going to be able to use these systems and this technology with. So that's when you're sitting at somebody who has experience, who somebody, like you said, is in their second or third act, and that's been through the business game, that's been through other industries, that has that domain knowledge and domain expertise. It doesn't matter if it's in a different industry that you're in now that you're transitioning to. All that information translates with you. It comes back to how you see things, how you communicate, how you know how to treat people. Like, even like when I have my AI note taker on all my calls right now, right? Because it makes me a better listener. I don't got to worry about taking notes, because now I know I can do damage with the transcript in a good way once I have the transcript, right? So it's like there's things that will make me. And when going back to that article, I saw that study too, Viv, about AI making us dumb. It comes down to the person, because the person can be looking at it like, I can just use this, like Steve, like you're saying, as a shortcut or something, like I don't got to do anything anymore. Or I can look at it as, I can do things better now. I can do things that I can expand my skill set. I can build things I've never been able to build before. I can create things. I literally had a project in my house in the backyard. I had to actually create 3D visions of like what I wanted to build. And I went and built it this weekend, right? Now it wasn't the exact same, but it gave me the idea to visualize it, right? So there's so much that this can bring to the table that you can use in your day-to-day life, in your business, in your transition. Even if you're like, I need clarity on what I want to do next in my next act, talk about it, talk through it, give it some ideas, talk about your vision.
We use it for that a lot.
Right. Yeah. What kind of life do you want to create? What is it? Like, there's this, like, we've never had an opportunity where, like you said, Steve, somebody talks back to me with the conversation I'm having in my mind. So now I can get that conversation out of my mind, and it talks back. It gives me feedback. It gives me different ways to think about it. And that's huge empowerment if you decide to use it as that. If not, you can sit back and say, you can play victim. Oh, it's going to take my job. It's going to replace me. It's going to do all this stuff. And I'm not saying there's not going to be job displacement. There will be job displacement, but it's the people that are going to be proactive and building these additional skill sets, because strategic thinking, communication, relationship building, all that stuff can be enhanced with AI. Right? When I'm a big human to human relationship person, but I can actually build better relationships now with technology assisting me in the back end of remind me when to communicate with them. What do we say? What are the conversations? Remind me of valid points that would have got it lost in my mind if I didn't write it down on a post note that I probably would have lost, that I would never have the information again. So,
and as a, in subtle things that you'll discover that illustrate value. If you've got a difficult email, somebody sent you something which is contentious, and your initial reaction is pretty strident,
right?
But then if you let AI compose the response, then you can say it's almost like you've taken a deep breath. It's a bit of cathartic experience, letting it write it first, and then you can kind of go, okay, I can work with this, and I can not cause more damage. I mean, sometimes you want to blow up the bridge.
Right. But I can inject empathy. I can inject, whatever it may be, right? And I usually have AI at least review and a response, whether even a client. I'm like, hey, here's what I'm trying to say. Here's my draft. Is there anything we can do to improve this communication? This is the point I'm trying to get across, right?
And anytime clarity and a difficult decision is involved, I'm finding AI so valuable.
100%.
If somebody's put a proposal in front of you, you're going to say no. I hate writing that no email. I still don't like writing it, but it's a lot. I think I find it a lot more acceptable.
Right.
Working with my new collaborative invisible friend.
Yes, because it's coming from them. It's not coming from me. I don't got to take it personal.
Well, when I read it, it makes sense, and it's removed the emotion from the equation, and it allows me to. Then I can inject a little bit of empathy. I can inject things, but I've got the clarity that I need so that they know exactly where we stand.
100%.
Yeah.
I
think we should probably put a button in it there.
Let us know where people can find out more about you.
Yeah,
because I'm sure people have questions.
Yes, I love questions. So please, if you're listening, don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can, two places. Number one, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can always just, tell me where you listen from or where you found me from. I'm more than happy to accept you. And if you have questions, the DMs, don't hesitate to reach out. The other thing, I'll be launching a newsletter as well here very, very soon. So if you go to jordache.ai, just get on my email list, and then there'll be a newsletter going out. I've been held back on actually doing a newsletter because I didn't want to have one that's the 10,000 out there. Here's the latest AI news. Right. Here's the latest tools. We're going to go deep on some things tying, technology, psychology, all the other things, business strategy, all that stuff. And we're going to be going deep on some topics to help people adopt AI a lot easier and new technologies and kind of navigate through this change. So get on my email list, and you can always hit reply too, and just drop me a question in the email as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. This was good. I appreciate y'all's time. This was a fun conversation.